Is it too much to ask that people that the taxpayer support on welfare, give them money for the basics of life, that it is spent on those basics, and that also they're not so wasted they can't be out there looking for a job? Seems fair enough, doesn't it?
Absolutely. I mean, it's totally fair enough. You know, when I was overseas, I had a taxi driver and he said, "Oh, you're from Australia. You pay people not to work. I want to come there." Now, it seems to me that a lot of the people who are on welfare have that attitude. Not all of them, clearly, but we really need to have this card to make sure that we help people who have drug dependency, and we also make sure that the taxpayer dollar is going to the right person for the right things. It makes me wonder, with all these social welfare groups who are lamenting and crying, you know, howling poor and whatever else about this whole cashless card, I'm just wondering what their motives are. Are they more worried about their jobs and people coming through the doors? If they were really seriously worried about the welfare of these people, they'd welcome this opportunity to get people off drugs and off dependency. And surely, as taxpayers, we don't want to be enablers of these things.
Well, Jackie Lambie was for it 24 hours ago, and now she's against it. Let's have a listen to what she had to say.
I'm happy to support the drug testing of welfare recipients. When we have leaders that call themselves leaders in politics, actually put that on themselves and the people in that building as well. No, I won't be supporting it, and I won't be supporting it unless the services are there and I can see the rehab services and the services that these people need to kick their habit are actually set up, which I'm yet to see.
Well, David Gazzard, notwithstanding that I don't like horse trading, and this woman's a master or a mistress of horse trading, the Commonwealth already puts many millions of dollars into rehab services. It's usually the states that have to provide the bulk of those services, and they do. I mean, one of the reasons why the services are under pressure is that drug use has gone up and up and up, and we are, I think, giving really mixed signals. We want pill testing at one hand, but we want more rehab at the other. On this particular issue, one of the principles that I like about the government's policy is that it will test someone, and if they breach that test a second time, they'll actually be referred to medical services to get off drugs. And isn't that exactly what Lambie's arguing for?
I think that's right. In the time-honoured tradition of Tasmanian senators, I think she's probably just pushing for more funds for services in her state, so you sort of can understand that. And she's testing the government. Maybe she felt she rolled over a bit earlier, too easily earlier, when she said she was going to back the bill. But to your point and Prue's point earlier, there was established in the Howard government this sort of view that there was an obligation on the recipient of welfare to put something back into society. So this was where Work for the Dole started. It wasn't that you just got this as a gift from the Commonwealth. You actually had to demonstrate that you were going to work or you were going to seek to work. And the idea that you would resist having a drug test as part of getting the Commonwealth's gift to you as a recipient of someone who needs help through a period in your life where you're not working doesn't seem unreasonable to me.
No, and look, we know it was made clear in government minister statements on Friday. If you're a methamphetamine user, you're 3 times more likely to be unemployed. Nicholas Reece, I want to bring you in here. You've worked as a parliamentary advisor like I have. I take a real dim view of horse trading outside an immediate piece of legislation with other extraneous issues. So we saw recently Jackie Lambie was horse trading on one piece of legislation about seeking the forgiveness of Tasmanian debt for social housing over here. It looks like she probably thought on Sunday when she said, yes, I support drug testing of welfare recipients, oh, I better get something for that, hence the back down. This is what people don't like to see in politics, isn't it?
Look, I'm with you on not being a supporter of horse trading, particularly by the crossbenchers, because ultimately, you know, horse trading deal after horse trading deal, you end up with a set of policies which are not good for the country as a whole. So it runs the quality of governance and policy making into the ground. But look, I suspect what's happened with Jackie Lambie, in this matter is I think she made a rather cute point initially about parliamentarians wanting to crack down on people on welfare who are using drugs, and she sort of made the cute point about perhaps the hypocrisy of parliamentarians who are also, of course, being paid by taxpayers, often being on the source late at night when they're in Parliament passing laws about the country, and the suggestion that if they're prepared to take drug tests, she might be prepared to entertain their bill. In that context was, pretty funny. I think after reflecting on that position and reflecting on how serious an area of policy this is, she's come to a new position, which is before she could seriously contemplate this proposal, she would need to see that there were much better supports in place for people on welfare. I mean, this whole thing, we should not, mince our words here, is a political play by the Prime Minister. This is something that sounds good in the Liberal Party focus group, but really doesn't stand up to serious scrutiny in the real world. In the UK, in the US, in Europe, where they have trialled this sort of intervention, it has been shown not to work. We shouldn't forget that the largest cohort of people on New Start in Australia are people over 55. So you've got people been in the workforce 35 years, worked all their lives, might have found a factory
closed. Well, hang on, Nick, hang on.
They're on welfare, and now we're going to ask them to pee into a cup
if they're not using, what on earth are they worried about? If they're not using, what on earth are they worried about? And you've got to remember that there are people on modest wages who pay tax, people earning $40,000, $50,000 who pay tax themselves, do it tough, they manage their money, but they pay tax in the hope that someone who might need help gets a hand up. Should the worst happen to them, they want the system to support people like that. But they don't expect them to spend it where it shouldn't be spent. They do expect them to feed and clothe their kids and put a roof over their heads and to look for work. It's not a permanent state of being, is it, Prue? And that's the problem that the government's trying to tackle here, is this intergenerational welfare and, sadly, the scourge of drugs running all the way through families.
It's quite outrageous that people who purport to have sympathy for these people are doing the wrong thing by them. We've got to get these people, we've got to help them get off this welfare generational ride. It's just not helping people. You've got to give them the wherewithal, the skills, the health to be able to get out and get off this terrible cycle. And people who are lamenting this and saying it's not right are really doing the wrong thing by them. I just find it quite despicable.